I am officially recording the meeting. And now I will officially welcome everybody to this public information meeting about the town of Saugerties exploration, its consideration of launching a community choice aggregation program. And I try to be very basic because energy is a very complex topic. And I'll try not to use acronyms and try not to use jargon. We're here to explain and help people understand what this is and what it's not and how it differs from things that you may be doing or may have heard about. So that's very much what we're going to do tonight. And I'll talk through the agenda in a moment, but I might use the CCA acronym a number of times since it is such a common acronym and it's the basic essence of what our program is. It's about communities joining together, aggregating to give a choice. And in this case, it's about energy, about electricity choices. And
it's going to be on for half an hour.
I'm just going to mute some folks. Again, folks, if you're joining and you're not speaking, just for our presentation purposes, if you can mute yourself, and I do not want to mute the town supervisor. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to our supervisor to do a welcome as well. Right after I just talk through the, get this request out of the way. After I talk through the agenda, which I'll do just briefly. So what we will speak about tonight is a basic level understanding of what community choice aggregation, or CCA, is, explaining what it is, and very much talking about why it exists in New York State and why towns like Saugerties is exploring launching this program. And so there's a number of slides on that. And then for detail, for some color to understand what it looks like when a program is live, I'll talk about the Joule CCA program, or programs that are taking place in the Hudson Valley. And Joule, that Joule word there in the second bullet, that is the administrator, an approved administrator for CCA programs that the town of Saugerties has chosen to be the guide for this exploration, and if we launch, to be the supporting organization, the team that will be behind the program, of which my organization, Hudson Valley Energy, is the nonprofit local program manager. So we'll talk about a couple of existing programs, and then we will talk about the next steps, give you a sense of the process of the communities. We're going to stay muted for most of the presentation. I'll speak for about 35, 40 minutes, but I do encourage folks to use the chat window. So when I finish presenting, I'll take a look at the chat window and make sure I'm answering questions that are in there, and people can then unmute and turn on videos and we can have a conversation and answer questions. All right, but before I dive in, Supervisor Costello, please let me turn this mic over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, and thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. I have a couple more thank yous I have to issue. Deputy Supervisor Leanne Thornton has been an amazing partner and spent a lot of time educating herself and taking a leadership role in helping facilitate this conversation. Also, the Conservation Advisory Committee, under the leadership of Mary O'Donnell, has really embraced the concept of CCA and explored what potential benefits this may afford our residents, and has kind of really played a significant role in bringing us all together tonight to start this conversation. For folks who may be just joining and are just learning about CCA, if you feel confused or have questions, that is great. You're not alone. Everyone does. Like Jeff just pointed to, the energy markets are a complex marketplace, and we all know a friend or a relative who engaged with an energy company that was promising savings and promising other things that did not deliver. Part of it is the complications that are associated with finding an energy provider. So what part of CCA offers is a way for residents to take advantage of potential savings and capitalizing on the renewable resources that are being developed around us. We also can participate in the energy markets as a group and benefit from those potential savings. And at the bottom line of that, this is what CCA represents, and it's the hope that it represents. And one of our things that motivate us to partner with Joule is their legacy of success, especially in the Hudson Valley. They've administrated a number of CCAs in the Hudson Valley, And the communications I've had with town leaders in those communities and residents in those communities is once people got a little bit of an understanding that they at that point embraced it and find it to be something that they're proud of, and they are seeing small savings in their energy bills, and we're using renewable energies, which we all understand the importance of. So this is exciting. I thank you folks for taking the time to come here this evening and begin the opportunity to educate yourself. And I think this is going to be an exciting dialogue. I'm sure we all have questions. You know, I've been looking at this for a number of years now, and I learn something new every time I talk to Jeff. So he's a tremendous resource, as are others. You know, the members of the CAC have really wrapped themselves in this and developed a unique understanding, and have a good team of resources that can help residents get their own understanding and their own expectations for what the benefits may be. And I think in the end, we're on a good track, and hopefully we can get a good plan and get something up and running in mid to late summer. So I don't want to take too much time. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jeff and just thank you.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Costello. That's great. And I'm so glad you shared up the thank yous too to the other folks who are now my partners in helping to do the awareness building that we're doing in the town, the CAC and the Climate Smart Task Force. So it's really wonderful, and I'm so excited to work with Saugerties. I'm based right down in Beacon, so I'm here in the Hudson Valley as well, and lifelong, born and bred in the Hudson Valley. So it's really great to work closely with some great communities in the Hudson Valley. I'm going to jump into my agenda momentarily, but one other side note that I will say, we do have upcoming meetings as well, and I do have a slide at the end with the upcoming meetings, including other public meetings from other communities that we're working with on launching. To join, you'll see a group of 10 communities that have already been doing a community choice aggregation program. So we have come to us meetings, lots scheduled, and we're going to spread the word far and wide, but please know also in the theme of what I said earlier, please share ideas about how if there's a group that would like us to come speak to them, small or large, that's what we're thrilled to do as well. And often those are the most effective in terms of numbers. You know, if we can, we're going to be reaching out. The network of my partners for awareness building have shared lots of good ideas, and we're going to be reaching out. But your ideas are most welcome. Put it in the chat window, or you'll see our contact information as well that you can share it with me. So now, so I don't, it's not so painful for me when I look back at this recording, I'm going to turn off my video and I'm going to focus on the agenda here. And thank you all again for keeping yourselves muted and video off just so that there's minimum interference. And now away we go. All right, so starting off with the first agenda item, what is community choice aggregation? So I've got a one-sentence description of what community choice aggregation is, and it's broken out in a format that looks like a poem, and that's for a reason, because I'm going to go into most of these lines in detail with some subtext that you'll see added in. But in brief, community choice aggregation is a concept. It's an opportunity that is focused on giving choice to members of communities that aggregate together to form a buying club, to have the power of numbers, to seek a win-win-win scenario of opportunities in the energy marketplace that, as a supervisor indicated, can be pretty complex, or just it's a hurdle or a headache to try to navigate through to the good opportunities that are out there. It is based on the same energy marketplace that was created in New York in the late 1990s by deregulation. And what deregulation did is it broke up the monopoly of full service that utilities had done to that date, where they were owned power production and then were involved in the supply decision and then delivered the power to the customers. Because of deregulation, all of our utility companies in New York, all of our investor-owned utility companies are delivery companies. They deliver packages, which is in this case is the energy, electricity, or in the case also gas, to the customers. And their job is to be reliable in that delivery of energy. And so to make sure that they're reliable, they do repair service, they do the billing, they do own the infrastructure, the substations and the poles and wires. But there is a marketplace for electricity supply. And ever since the late 1990s, lots of customers have been able to go out and choose and have chosen to enter into a contract with a company that serves as a middleman for supply, and in some cases, they own the sources of supply. And those companies are commonly known as ESCOs, or energy supply companies. So what is new and different, and this is as of 2016, just 2016, the state enabled this policy that enables municipalities, cities and towns and villages, as I'll say in a second, to determine a new default energy offering, including electricity supply and community choice solar on behalf of its residents and small businesses. So in that fourth line, including electricity supply and community choice solar, please keep a mental space now for two separate programs that are parallel and stackable underneath the umbrella of the policy known as community choice aggregation. And I'm going to talk in depth about that to make it clear that there's a difference in what we're talking about. And you'll see that I'll show a image of my utility bill so you know where these programs exist on your utility bill, your Central Hudson utility bill, and it should help. All right, but now let me just talk about what is the current default situation in a community before a CCA program launches. So we're talking about, for us, our focus in this program, Jewel as the administrator and my nonprofit as the partner, working with communities, is a focus on electricity supply. I mentioned in the definition that this could be both for electricity supply or for energy, which is electricity supply or gas. But our focus is on electricity supply. And that is because we are interested in promoting better environmental choices. And there's not much you can do with gas except get away from it and electrify, more electrification, because you can actually do better environmental decision-making around electrification. Now, again, back to my slides. There are two choices that every utility customer in New York has before them, before CCA came along. There is the New York State determined default choice. And then there is a market choice that was created by deregulation, as I said on the previous slide. So two choices in terms of electricity supply. If somebody does not take advantage of the marketplace, go out and enter into a contract with a company, an energy service company in the marketplace, if they make no choice, then the state decision, the New York State determined default, is that the utility company will make that choice for them for supply. And this is the reason that people get confused, because many people don't take advantage of the open marketplace. And so they think that Central Hudson or other utility companies are making money on delivery and supply. The default choice is that as the state determined, is that the utility will make that choice for you, but they are not allowed to make money on that. It is a pass-through cost for them. They're also not allowed to fix that price. So many of you have noticed that your supply rates, if you look at your utility bill frequently, it varies month to month. It's rarely, if ever, the same from one month to the next. And that is just by state mandate, that they're not allowed to fix a price. And so again, these are the two decisions that a customer has before them. I put the asterisk on the first choice to note that that's the default choice. You'll notice there is an empty box on my table, and just a hint, that's where CCA is going to go. And you'll see that the asterisk for the default choice is going to move with that new choice when it comes along. All right, so you'll see this table again, but moving forward to back to my definition. So again, community choice aggregation, it's a policy that enables municipalities to explore, so we're talking about cities and towns and villages, to explore the ability of doing a community choice aggregation program. And I'll talk about the process on an upcoming slide. It begins with a law to enable, to launch a program or to do the exploration of launching a community choice aggregation program. Cities and towns and villages have to pass a local law. That's just necessary. If somebody, I'm hearing a bit of an echo, so if somebody could mute, if you haven't muted yourself, please do. Thank you. This program was enabled in 2016 by the New York State Public Service Commission, which oversees the utilities in New York State. And so it's not a New York State policy, but it is regulated. It is overseen by them. And so the work that we do with communities is approved and overseen by the New York State Public Service Commission. So that means that there is oversight and protections built into this program. So again, revisiting my definition. So it's a policy enabling municipalities to determine energy offerings, default energy offerings. I'm just going to check here and do some muting. Still hearing some. Okay, I don't no longer hear an echo. All right, so what are the default energy offerings we're talking about? Again, I said currently Central Hudson and New York State determine the default energy offerings. With this program, the default decision changes to a local decision about what that default offering is. So the second bullet is about community choice. Everyone that's eligible receives a default offering unless they choose not to participate in the program. So this is a key aspect and often the most surprising aspect of a community choice aggregation program. It's what the default means. In becoming the default choice, everyone who is eligible, and that is for the most part, there are exceptions, but it's everyone for whom Central Hudson or the local utility is making that supply decision for them, that pass-through cost decision, they are considered an eligible customer. And Central Hudson would share, if the program proceeds, the customers for whom they're making a decision to be included in the launch of a program, at which point customers would have to decide if they don't want to be part of the program. It's allowed to operate that way because it is built in with consumer protections, and it focuses on cost savings and transparency and promoting the state goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions through an emphasis on putting more renewables on the grid. So there is overlapping win-win-win scenarios that I'll, again, identify in an upcoming slide that speak to why it's allowed to operate as an opt-out program. But that is a surprising aspect of the program. But again, it's really just changing one opt-out to another. What is the state-determined opt-out, where unless you opt out of it, the utility makes your choice, to if a community goes through and launches a CCA, the decision made by the aggregation of communities, the partnership of communities, becomes a new default. All right, so what do we mean by electricity supply and community choice solar? Electricity supply is what you pay for through your utility bill every month for the electrons that come and power your home or the electronics within your home. That is electricity supply. CCA is also a vehicle, can be used to promote, this is what the state is very interested in, promoting people to take advantage of community choice solar or community solar. It is something that is separate from the supply decision. Community solar, and many of you have probably heard about this, and as a matter of fact, I even started our meeting tonight with a conversation with one of the attendees, with Tom, about the fact that he had a supply company, a third-party supply company, and was in a community solar project already. The supply portion is what you pay for. It's associated with, it's a rate that is multiplied by how much electricity you use each month. Community solar is when you subscribe and become a virtual owner of a field of solar panels, a portion of a field of solar panels that's not on your home or in your business. If you don't have solar on your home or business, you can become a virtual owner of a portion of a field of solar. You helped the developer of that field of solar get the additional benefits that the state provides for doing a community beneficial program. That additional benefit they receive is shared with the subscribers in the form of a bill credit, a reduction on everyone's bill. So it's a monetary transaction. It is not, that bill credit comes every month, but it is not based on how much electricity you use that month. So let me say that again. It's not based on how much electricity you use that month. It's based on how much was produced by the amount of solar that was assigned to you as a subscriber to that project. I'm hearing a bit of if you could mute yourself, folks, that would be great. Thank you. All right, so that's what we're talking about in terms of the energy portion of what this definition is. And when we're talking about on behalf of its residents and small businesses, we're talking about anyone who's small to medium-sized customers, and it can be residential or commercial small businesses. Larger customers are excluded. People who have an existing supply contract are excluded from the supply portion of the program. And again, anyone is included unless they choose to opt out, which they can do at any time. They can choose to opt out at any time, and there's no fee. There's the idea of this thing being a public benefit. The requirements of the Public Service Commission is that there's nothing hidden here. This is vetted by the partnership of municipal leaders with the administration team to make sure that there's nothing odds or hidden inside the program, which has been generally problematic with other energy service companies. I'm distracting. There we go. I'm just going to mute a couple of folks here, not myself. All right. So that is my definition of what community trace aggregation is. Now I have two tables here. The one you're familiar with on the left, filled in as I promised, to show that if a community launches a community choice aggregation program, a CCA, there would be three choices available to the customers, in all the utility customers in that community. With, muting again, with CCA, the supply choice made by the aggregation now being the default choice, the one from which people would have to choose to opt out of, to not participate. Again, this electricity supply table on the left, and it's like, this is like my menu slide. It's like, just picture that this is the appetizer and the table on the right is the entree section. You can have one from each. The table on the left is for the rate that is multiplied by how many kilowatt hours, how much electricity you use each month. And those are the three choices. To differentiate again from a solar decision. And I've been talking about community solar, but community solar is one of three choices that people have. Oops. I suddenly stopped sharing. All right. Can everyone see? I hope everyone can see. I think you can see that now. It says I'm sharing. So community solar is only one of three choices that people have on the solar side of this menu. And again, this is for potential credits, reductions from your electricity bill. Choice A being you don't have to do anything about solar. Choice B, as many of you are probably familiar, some reason somebody is kicking me out from sharing. Choice B is that solar can be on your home or business. You could actually get into a lease arrangement or a purchase arrangement to put solar on your home or business. Or choice C is community solar. Again, you can only do one of those. And there is a component of community solar that is associated with the CCA program that is an option that a community can explore that operates on the same opt-out basis as the electricity supply portion that we talked about already. But that is something that is in exploration, and I'll kind of reference that. Now, for further clarification, here's the promised slide where I don't know what's going on here. Why I keep stop sharing here. So here's my image of my utility bill. And this was shows the details of my electricity bill, all the detailed line items that are overwhelming for nearly all of us to understand in terms of electricity and how it works. And I am just an electricity customer. I don't have gas in my house. And so what shows here is the emphasis that there is a delivery section, and that is the section at the top for, by which Central Hudson makes money. There is a supply section, which is the middle section, which I've surrounded with a red box in the middle. And that's where line items and the rate for supply would be. And at the bottom, there is a community solar section. And I'm going to pause for a second and just mute some background noise, if I may. All right, not sure where that's coming from, but again, folks, if you're not speaking, please do. Oh, there we go. If you can mute yourself, that'd be great. All right, so again, this program, to speak to a common misconception about a community choice aggregation program, if it launches in a community, people are concerned that it replaces Central Hudson. This has no impact. A community choice aggregation program has no impact on the way Central Hudson operates and how they make their money. So the top portion of the bill, as shown here, the total delivery charges and all the delivery line items is unaffected by our program. And also, to dispel a myth, the utility company, again, they don't make money on the supply section, so they can't penalize people if they're in a CCA or if they're in a private contract for supply by raising their delivery rates. They are also overseen by the Public Service Commission, and so have to file a case to make any changes to their delivery charges. So unaffected. So Central Hudson still will provide the one bill that takes care of all of the logistics for this program. Now, I am in a CCA program down here in Beacon. Beacon is one of the 10 communities that launched a CCA program in the middle of 2019. And you can see that instead of 3 line items, which some of you who are not in a private contract, and if you're not in CCA, there would be 3 line items in this middle box, each with the amount of electricity multiplied by 3 different rates that make up how the utility passes through the cost for supply, how they charge for supply. So this shows you that this is where the utility rate or the supply rate exists as a member of a CCA program, and it's right here. It's this 6361 number, and that is the rate for 100% renewable supply from New York State that we obtained for the 10 communities that are part of the Hudson Valley Community Power Partnership Program. So that single flat rate is the same rate every month between July of 2019 through June of 2021 for me as a member of a CCA community. And it's multiplied by the same amount of electricity that I use that month to get my total supply charges. And again, Central Hudson takes payment, but passes it through to the supplier that we picked for this program. And so the supplier that, if Saugerties goes forward and launches a program, the supplier that we collectively pick and lock into a contract to do just what we want them to would be identified right here. So you just note too that it doesn't say I'm in a CCA program. It doesn't have the name of our program, which is Hudson Valley Community Power Program. The way it works with utility bills in Central Hudson is they show the supplier selected. But it does show the program rate, which, as I mentioned, is 6.361 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, I am also a subscriber to a community solar project. And that is the official term for community solar, or another type of community renewable subscription program is called Community Distributed Generation, or abbreviated sometimes CDG. And that exists down here in my payments and adjustments section. And you can see that for the amount of power produced by my portion of a solar field over in Wappingers, I had an $81 reduction and 1 cent from my bill this month. So again, the CCA electricity supply lives up here. Community solar, which is a parallel, stackable, but you can do one or the other item, lives separately on my utility bill. So I hope that brings some additional clarity to what the 2 different programs are. So that's an overview of what CCA is and the umbrella of how it can be a way to promote both electricity supply options to achieve really good benefits that are very consumer protective in the energy marketplace, and community solar. What I'm showing now is the process slide, the implementation process for a community that is going through the exploration and potential launch of a CCA program. Saugerties did several months ago pass the enabling local law. That is step 1. Step 2, by the mandate of the Public Service Commission, is to select an administration approach. And they chose to choose an administrator that was approved already by filing an implementation plan with the Public Service Commission. And again, that is Jewel. And I do have a slide on Jewel coming up to further emphasize who they are in the program. Now, since they selected the CCA administrator and we are full on into exploring whether this makes sense, the next requirement is that there be a minimum 60-day public outreach and education period. So that's where we are. We're right in the beginning of this public outreach and education period. And that will be public meetings that we invite people to, and our social media distribution, flyers, posters, emails, requests to go to other people's meetings. There's lots that we're going to be doing in the coming weeks and months to spread the word about this program. If and when we're approved, if our outreach was sufficient to the state's, to the Public Service Commission's satisfaction, we can then move on in the process where we can get regulatory approval to get a data request, which moves towards creating a bid, an RFP for energy offerings. All of these steps are exploratory. The Saugerties will be part of the conversation for what goes into that request for proposals, that bid, to set the minimum of what it wants to be if it's going to be part of a program. If a supplier comes back and gives us what we're looking for in terms of rates and contract terms, and which really focus on nothing funny, no funny business, and consumer protection built into it, where nobody is in a contract, that's how you have that flexibility to opt out at any time, then the program can proceed to awarding a bid and then kicking off the launch of the program, which comes with more additional education and outreach. And then a minimum period for opting out, which I'll talk about again, but it's a minimum of 30 days, during which people who don't want to be part of this, never want to be included, have a minimum of 30 days to opt out of the period of the program. And then for those who stayed in, we process the opt-outs and then the enrollments, and then the program launches. And you will see this slide again, and I'll have some dates on it too, giving you a sense of the timeline that we're hoping to move forward with through the process. Again, I should have put this up before, but I put right here, what is the go, no-go point? It's between steps 5 and 6. So there is still we're still in the exploratory phase. So it's at between 5 and 6, where there was a decision of whether Saugerties would go forward with the program. But it's after a good deal of outreach and education and opportunity for us and the leadership to get feedback on the program. So now I'm on to the second bullet, talking about existing programs. And it's really just encapsulated in showing you what the partnership looks like through what I call the logo slide for these programs. I mentioned the name before, but the name of the program that launched in the middle of 2019 with all of the 10 community partners you see in the lower left, Beacon and Clinton, Cold Spring, the town of Fishville, Marbletown, the town and village of New Paltz, Phillipstown, the city of Poughkeepsie, and the town of Red Hook. We launched this program with Jewel. All of them chose Jewel as their administrator, and Jewel has my nonprofit as the program manager. And together, we did a bid in early 2019 and selected Direct Energy, as you saw in my bill, to be the supplier. And they gave us that fixed rate, with no contract requirements on any community member in these communities. Central Hudson's logo is here to emphasize again that we do not displace Central Hudson. All of these communities happen to be in Central Hudson territory, and Central Hudson keeps doing the delivery service, repair service, billing service that they always do. So this is just a way through of taking advantage of the current existing marketplace through a financial transaction to have a very powerful impact on encouraging renewables onto the New York State grid. So that's how this works. There is more detail, lots of FAQs beyond even what I'll talk about tonight on the partnership website, which is in the lower right, HudsonValleyCommunityPower.com. And there are several social media channels that you can follow updates about our program and the like. But I do encourage people to visit the website, look at the FAQs. You can find other events, as I'll put that back up at the end, the public events that you want to see, recordings of other events we've done. There's lots of good information on that site. But again, it's a partnership program of all of the logos in the lower left under the title of Hudson Valley Community Power. And so that is not the only CCA program that's here in the Hudson Valley. We are adding, as I mentioned, the contract for these 2 programs, for these 10 communities, is ending in the middle of this year. And so as you'll see in the timeline, we're working on potentially adding Saugerties and the town of Gardner, Rhinebeck, and the village of Nelsonville to this aggregation of communities. The reason we do this, to answer the why question about why are these communities doing this, I've mentioned it verbally, but here it is spelled out, that there are and there's a number of benefits, but you can group them into three major categories of benefits. Oh, and this is why I have the win-win-win scenario chart up here. There are environmental benefits to this program, and it's certainly why I'm involved in this. There are program rate benefits. There are economic benefits to this, and there are customer protection benefits as well, which are often the overlooked aspect of the program, but I've kind of found that it's the universally most appreciated nature of the program because lots of people have had some challenging experiences in the energy marketplace, and sometimes including with just their basic service. So details on these three different benefits. So in terms of environmental benefit, again, this is a powerful mechanism that sends immediate benefit to renewable producers in New York State. And there is a requirement for programs that the sourcing of renewables be within the New York State grid, attached to the New York State grid. And so with our 10 communities, we represent more than 25,000 households that are immediately when the program launched, only paying for 100% renewable electricity through their utility bill at a very competitive rate, as I'll talk about in a second. By that decision, over the life of the program through the end of 2020, more than 200,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions were avoided that otherwise would have been released had they not been promoting and using up this renewable power in New York State. So this does have very powerful impacts on the New York electricity grid, including medium and long-term benefits, because there are many, many communities, more than 130 to date, have passed local laws for CCA. And so this is a very powerful mechanism that is making a wonderful fertile ground for more renewables to come onto the grid. In terms of program rates, we only get a fixed supply rate for simplicity and transparency, and it's the power of the program that we are allowed to get a fixed rate for the duration of the contract. For the existing program, it was a 2-year contract. It's likely to be 2 or 3, maybe 4 years on the next bid, but we'll know that only when we receive proposal responses. That rate is competitive with the non-renewable utility rate that people have been paying for if Central Hudson is making their supply decision for them. And so it is a very competitive rate, and it has the potential, though it's not guaranteed, to be better than the average of what people pay the utility company. Yeah, there's some very interesting news just published today in terms of what Central Hudson's rate is and showing the power of our program. That is, in that second bullet under program rates, that is an apples to oranges comparison. When I talk about our focus on 100% renewables being a competitive rate with a non-renewable rate. So if you think about our renewable focused fixed rate as being an apple, non-renewable being an orange, and no slight to those different fruits, but common analogy. In terms of an apples to apples comparison, our fixed rate for renewables is certainly better than what people could get from an ESCO in the energy marketplace. We talked about how there is this energy marketplace that people can go out into, and many people have. And the reasons that people have gone into the energy marketplace are one of two reasons, for the most part, that I can think of. I can't think of a third at this point in time. One is to get a better rate. Maybe they don't care about renewable power. They just want to get a better rate than they've been paying with the utility company making their supply decision. A second reason is to promote renewables. And many people have done that, joining up with companies like Green Mountain Energy or numerous other ones that will source renewable for you. But that comes at a premium. So they don't go together. So to promote renewables, to go into a private contract, almost exclusively costs more. The idea of CCA is that you can bring those together through the power of numbers, through a buying club. The CCA, in essence, is like a Costco or a BJ's Wholesale. The power of all the members of these communities that are eligible gives the supplier the confidence to bid out at a very competitive rate for 100% renewables. So that is the win-win in terms of environmental benefit and program rate benefit. But don't overlook the third, which is so important. There is numerous aspects of consumer protection. There's no contract for anybody if this program launches. It is structured like a public benefit, like a public swimming pool or a public tennis court that the town builds and gives everyone a membership that they can reject at any time if they want to. And actually, you can come back into it at any time if you want to as well. So there's no participation restrictions. There's no penalties for that low fixed supply rate or to leave the program. It is fixed for 2 years, so there's no surprises. And additionally, there's, because there is some confusion around this and people are, there's a lot to understand here. We're there as a support. The team that's behind the program are there to continue doing education and awareness building and answer questions. So it's not something that I think is invaluable, the fact that you have a team there to support the program. So that's the why of the program. So the who is behind this, again, Jewel is the selected administrator. And Jewel is a company one of 4 companies in the organizations in the state that was approved to be a CCA administrator. They are the entity that's authorized to represent the municipality throughout the CCA process. They are also very, very wise in terms of understanding how CCA works. They are called upon by the New York State Energy Research Development Authority as a resource for numerous aspects, and they're overseeing numerous other CCA programs in New York State. Their model goes beyond the state requirements in a number of ways, and is pushing the bounds to do good things in a number of ways, including, after the ... at the bottom, to include a local program manager to go way beyond the outreach, education, and support for the duration of a CCA program, the multiple years, hopefully, of a CCA program. And so again, the local program manager here in the Hudson Valley is my organization. And so we lead the outreach and education and the customer support efforts. I've got a team and we've got a helpline and we're behind the emails and we do live, we'll do live in-person meetings again, hopefully soon, like we used to do. But we'll do a lot of these live virtual meetings in the meantime. And I am a nonprofit. And the reason I'm involved is that we have been working for years on helping communities do sustainability efforts to promote sustainable communities. This is a very familiar looking slide, but it's different. This is like a spot the difference from the previous slide that you saw. And I did preview it by saying there is more than one active CCA program here in the Hudson Valley that we're involved in. This is the Rockland Community Power Partnership. It's a CCA program that's in Orange and Rockland territory, and you can see the Orange and Rockland logo. And it involves 6 communities who happen all to be in Rockland County on the west side of the river. And similar down here, all of these communities chose to work with Jewel as the administrator, and then I come along as the program manager to support the program. You notice that we picked a different supplier through the RFP process here. Instead of Direct Energy, it's a company called Constellation. So it really is an RFP put out to the marketplace for supply companies to see if they can meet the requirements of our program before we launch. Similarly to before, there is a website, rocklandcommunitypower.com. Much of the same information you'd find on the hudsonvalleycommunitypower.com website, but it's a good resource as well. But as you'll see, we're working on renewing the program for the 10 communities that are currently part of Hudson Valley Community Power. And if things work out, Saugerties would be part of the updated contract for Hudson Valley Community Power. All right. So back to this implementation process slide to talk about the timeline. So on the right, I have some notes on timeline. So again, now we are at the public outreach and education period. By April, we hope to be able to go out by the end of April to create the bid for the town to review. Hopefully we are approved for the outreach efforts that we've done and can go forward to structure an RFP to go out to the marketplace, which we hope will be towards the end of May. And at which point we would award a supply bid if it works out. If it does, we would be doing more outreach and education and doing the opt-out periods and enrollments through June, with the program going live, being on people's utility bills in July, if things work out. So that's the structure of the program and the timeline. So what happens next in the implementation phase? Oops, I left Gardner up here. Forgive me for this one. So we're in the first phase of community education and outreach, and I left Gardner in the same, should say Saugerties up here. And as you saw, Gardner, Saugerties, Rhinebeck, and Nelsonville are the 4 communities that are in this new community process. So we're going to continue the outreach and education. And then if and after a bid for electricity supply and community solar, if we conclude that in the program, after the bids for those things go out, we'll do a second round of education when we'll have the details. So we can do this presentation, but we'll be doing this presentation saying to people, this is the price that we got. This is the length of the program. These are the anticipated savings. These are the sources of the renewables from New York State that are going to be part of the program. All of that information, the price, the term, the savings, the source, will all be included in a letter that is mailed to all eligible residents and small businesses in the partner communities that says this program is launching, this is what it is, there's an FAQ, it details all those details, the price, the term, the savings, and the source, and it identifies very explicitly how to get out of the program if you don't want to be in it. There's and I'll talk about what those options are in the next slide. So these are the opt-out options that people can take advantage of with the launch of a program. If the program launches and a letter goes out, inside the letter, there's a postage paid envelope that with a card that people can just sign and stick in the envelope and send back to say, I don't want to be in the program. Or they can call our helpline number, which I'll show at the end of the slide, or they can use a form that's on the partnership website, on the HudsonValleyCommunityPowered.com website. There's an enrollment opt-out form on there. In the good old days, people could tell us in person, we could take their information and submit it, or they could send us an email. It's important to note that for, with the eligible customer list provided by Central Hudson, when the program launches, everyone's utility account number is not transferred by Central Hudson until after the opt-out period. So your utility account number is like your social security number. It's something you should protect and not share out. And so it is not shared out in this program. And it is only shared out for those who stay in the program, and it's transferred at that point to our supply company so that they can do the proper billing arrangement with Central Hudson. So it's just one of the aspects by which consumer protection is baked into the program. You'll see that of the 4 options that have asterisks on them in this slide, these are always available throughout the life of the program for people to opt out or opt into the program at any time. The posted page mailer is just for the launch phase, that mailing envelope. But anybody could call our number, use the website form, tell us in person, or send us an email to opt out of the program. All right, we're getting towards the end here. So I'm going to revisit some common questions that people ask before I open it up and take your questions. So the first common question that we get is, does this replace my utility company? No, this is all through Central Hudson's utility bill, and their service stays the same. For the supply portion of the program, it's just a line item change in the supply section. People frequently ask us in the start of these programs, or if they get the letter and they haven't heard about why this is happening, they say, why are you doing this? How can you do this? And as a reminder, that is because it is the public benefit encapsulated in the 3 win-win-win scenarios I talked about above. The idea that we're bringing together competitive rate for 100% renewables with numerous consumer protection elements baked into it. Will the program save me money? As I mentioned above, it's structured to be cost competitive. And we do anticipate when the program launches, especially in the current marketplace, that there will be a savings over what people have paid versus non-renewables through the utility. Somewhere between 5 and 10% is our goal, but it's not guaranteed. Because the only risk of this program is that our fixed rate could at times be higher than the utilities rate. It will probably correct, and we do think it'll work out, but that is the only risk. And it's a risk that you're not locked into. Again, people can opt out if they want. So that's for the supply portion of the program. In the parentheses, the reason that a community would include an opt-out community solar is that there are guaranteed savings associated with it. And Saugerties is an exploration about whether it wants to include that option. So if we do, we'll talk in more detail about it in our future meetings. So am I locked into this program for the duration of a contract? No, absolutely not. Anyone could exit freely at any time. No penalties, no costs, or come back in if they want to. The next question is inspired by people's experience in the private energy supply marketplace, where they have been in contracts and it's been fixed for a period, and then suddenly it turns crazy with a variable rate that often sometimes goes high. So people ask us, what happens after this supply contract ends? Will the rate go crazy? Am I locked into this and just keeps going on and on? Again, it's not. It's a contract period that is structured to end at a time to prevent something where it's just an endless experience. And it is not something where the rate could ever change. It's a set period, set rate. The program can repeat. As I talked about, for the 10 communities for whom the contract is ending at the end of June of this year, we're in the process right now of those communities considering a resolution to allow them to be part of a new request for proposals that would also be part of the one that Saugerties would be part of in about May. So, but that would repeat the whole process with the letter issued and the public outreach meetings and the like. So it's not something that happens in the dark. We want everyone to know about this, and there's multiple ways that we do put the information out there. The last common question that I'll talk about here is, where does the energy come from? People ask us that. For the supply portion, it's renewable electricity from New York State. If it's community solar, another reason that community solar is a parallel excellent benefit, it has to be from a project in Central Hudson Territory. All right, so those are the common questions. So we'll be starting to take questions shortly, but a couple more slides. So our upcoming public information events. This is busy, but we're doing a lot of public information events. They are all virtual right now because of the pandemic. You can find all of these at the HudsonValleyCommunityPower.com website, the events page, /events. There are meeting links on there. Anybody can attend any of these meetings. So we will definitely be directing people to them. But we also do have, you can see there's 2 events for Saugerties that are coming up. One on March 25th, as shown in the image. We have another one, a minimum of another one on April 10th. But that's not the end of what we're doing. We, again, encourage people to ask us to come and speak to them. We're available on the helpline to explain the program. But we will also schedule other meetings for groups and others to explain this program. But again, all of these dates are on the website. And so that is the presentation. I thank you for your patience, and I'm glad my voice held out. You can hear it's getting a little scratchy. I'm not sure. I think it might be the beginnings of springtime with some pollen in the air, but thank you for your patience. And so now I will pull up the chat window starting there, and I'll try to bounce back and forth to see. Well, there's not much in the chat window. Someone didn't see the share, but I hope everyone did see the slides that I was talking about. But there is one question from Kevin saying, where are the farms located? Again, for community solar farms, those have to be in Central Hudson Territory. We've been supporting this through the existing 10 communities for people to consider community solar. And we helped fill up 9 locations in the Hudson Valley that covered a spectrum. I can share with you afterwards or in a conversation the map of where these are located. My project for here in Beacon at the time I was enrolled was just about 10 minutes north of me in Wappingers. Question, future Saugerties meetings and links to join the conference can also be found. Oh, good, yes, climatesmartsaugerties.org. They have the events listed there too, so thank you for that, Steve. Question from Sally, is there a minimum number of households that have to participate? A very good question. No, this is not like a pyramid scheme. These programs have been around for a while. Only since 2016 in New York State, but 2019, CCA started in Massachusetts in 1999. And so there are 7 other states with active CCA programs. So the point being that suppliers know how this works. We know that people will opt out of the program when it launches, but we know roughly on average how many people that will be, and the majority of people will stay in the program. And so it gives them enough confidence to do the competitive bidding that they do. But wonderfully, they also sign a contract whereby even if everybody opted out of the program except one person, they still have to provide that fixed rate that they signed up with, that they provided in their RFP response. So it doesn't matter how many people are going to be in the program, though we do know just from experience that the majority of community members will be in the program. All right, Elizabeth asked, I have solar panels, although they don't cover all our electricity needs, especially in winter. Is it really not worth it to join a community choice solar? All right, so this is a separate question. I'm gonna answer two questions for Elizabeth, including one that is another common question that we get. I'm gonna answer that one first. People ask us in terms of the electricity supply, the fixed rate portion of the program, if it makes sense to be part of a CCA. For those of you who are familiar with that choice number two on the solar table, you know what, I should turn my camera on too, so people can see me putting up two fingers when I'm talking about choice number two. For those who install solar on their homes or businesses, there is an arrangement by which they receive credit for the power that's produced on the project that they installed. And for many people, that reduces their electricity quite a bit. Some people, not the most, it actually zeroes out the electricity charges they would have. Most people do have some amount of electricity that they purchase over the course of a year. Especially, they see it in the wintertime when the sun angle is such that they have less production from their system. It's at those times when they're purchasing power that the program fixed supply rate would apply. So a couple of thoughts there. One, they would benefit, but a lot less than other people who don't have solar panels on their home or business, who are always purchasing electricity. So it is still a benefit, and it's actually kind of a doubling down in terms of what they're doing in terms of environmental benefits to have solar and to be part of a CCA with a fixed rate from 100% renewable sources. There's also the question for that supply rate that some people, the credit that they get for overproduction, that there's a rate that they get paid, a wholesale rate. This program does not affect the wholesale rate that's in the arrangement that they have in place. Basically the money that they get paid for overproduction for having a solar system. So no impact there. Now, directly to Elizabeth's question, though, she said, does it make sense, since she doesn't have full displacement of her electricity needs, is it really not worth it to join a community choice solar? It would be wonderful for the additional reductions, but it's considered double dipping by the state for someone to have a solar system, with what they call a net metering arrangement, and to be part of community choice solar. Community choice, a community solar program is for people who don't have a solar system. That's again speaking to my table, my menu table, where you can only choose one of the options. So to date, still there is some discussion, but still there is not the ability to do both. So you have to have one or the other. So question from Mary, will Village of Saugerties residents be included in the program? Thank you, an excellent question. This is based on the lowest level of decision-making, municipal decision-making. As I mentioned in the process, a community that has law-making abilities has to pass a local law to enable a program to proceed, and also pick an administrator path. The village has not yet done that. And so the village residents would not be included in the town program if the village does not pass a local law and also choose Jewel to be the administrator. So yes, so no, they would not be included. So question, I think is again from Tom. Good, bring up your question about you joined Common Energy under Saugerties auspices. How does that fit in? Is that the company that Fred alluded to is not having worked out too well? I'm not sure. And Fred, if you're still there, you can speak to, if you want to, some of the detail you talked about. But I did mention this. So Common Energy, as I understand it, I've heard it, and I think I understand that it is a community solar option. And the reason we talk about community solar in these presentations is, one, because it is a possibility to do an opt-out program of community solar alongside the opt-out supply portion of the program. But even if a community does not do an opt-out community solar, we still talk about community solar because there is so much confusion between the supply, what supply means and what community solar means. And again, I hope you'll remember those multiple examples I gave, including my utility bill, where I showed that it's two separate financial transactions. And it's two separate ways of contributing to demand for renewables on the New York grid. There's a great point to be made here, though, about who is an eligible customer and who's not if a program launches. For the supply portion of a program, member choice number 2 was somebody enters into a contract for supply with one of the dozens and dozens of companies that exist out there. If somebody is in an existing contract and their community launches a CCA supply program, they are automatically excluded. They are not included. They do not have to opt out. They are not removed from their existing contract. So this is just given as a new choice, but doesn't displace anybody from a choice they've already made in the energy marketplace. Similarly, if somebody has community solar, and community solar is a great choice to make, it is often structured to be a wonderful opportunity by which people can just save upwards of 10% off of their total electric bill. If somebody's in a community solar project, a CCA program does not kick them out of their current contract arrangement either. So this would not displace them. Anybody, though, could join the CCA program at any time. If they have an existing energy supply contract and they like the program rate or they just want to be part of the community's program, after first making sure there's no penalties for ending their current contract, they can opt into the program. They have to end their current arrangements and then contact us and we can put them in the program. That's also possible if the community does an opt-out community solar program, but it'd have to make sense for that customer on a couple of different levels. So Elizabeth asks, we are an Ampion solar company now. It is not an ESCO. Would we need to leave? Nope, Ampion, I'm familiar with them. They are a community solar company. So it's not an ESCO, it's not a supply company. So if we just launched an energy supply CCA in Saugerties, your current Ampion community solar arrangement is unaffected. You still get the credits as you did before the program launched. Still lives on that bottom portion of your Central Hudson bill. All right, I see no other questions in the chat window. And forgive me, I'm just going to make sure I didn't miss anything. So I now do encourage you folks to unmute yourselves, and I welcome your questions. Any other questions? I'll keep an eye on the chat window too. Here again, also I didn't emphasize it, but here's our contact information if you want to reach out to us afterwards. There is the helpline, 845-859-9099. There is an email address for my team. I've got Roberto Muller and Jake Mitchell on my team as part of Hudson Valley Energy. And my main point of contact at Joule is Glenn Weinberg, and there's his number and email address too. All right. Anyone want to ask a question? Skip. Yeah, go ahead, Skip. I see your hand up, Skip. Go ahead.
Elizabeth's question, she doesn't need to leave Ampion, but if she wants to be part of the CCA, she would need to leave Ampion and join the CCA. To be part of the CCA, she would have to leave Ampion. But just because the CCA went in effect, she wouldn't have to.
If you're talking about if Saugerties goes forward with a community solar program, again, let me just revisit that statement. The CCA is an umbrella over 2 parallel programs, supply and potentially community solar. And so if it's just supply in Saugerties, then her Ampion contract stays. If the community does an opt-out community solar program too, and she wants to be part of that, yes, she would have to leave her current contract and join the towns. The benefits, we're getting ahead of ourselves since it's not decided yet, but the reason, an additional reason that an opt-out community solar program is beneficial, just as there's no contract for community members for the supply portion, and you have complete flexibility, there's no contract for a community solar program through a CCA, while there always is for a private contract that people have a private arrangement.
So if Saugerties does not choose the community solar project, anybody that's in a community solar project can also be in the CCA?
Yes, that is true.
I just wanted to be real clear about that.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? I am staying here, so I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here, at least through 8 o'clock. So, Steve, do you have a question?
Jeff, yeah, did you say before that, I thought I heard you say that if we have another ESCO already with our Central Hudson account and the CCA goes into effect, because we have an existing contract with that ESCO, that we are not automatically we are not automatically joined to the CCA, is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And that is one of our communication challenges too, is that there's probably a lot of people who have a contract who may want to either get out of their current contracts, or when their contract ends, they might want to join the CCA. One of the challenges we have in our outreach is that the letters that I spoke to, the letters that go out if and when the program launches, they only go to people who don't have a third-party contract right now. So they wouldn't know. But that's one of the things that we continually try to do in our outreach efforts, is figure out multiple ways to make sure everyone's aware of what we're doing. Any other question? Expand the agenda so I can see more folks.
Jeff, for the community solar, is it true that if a resident joins the CCA, stays with CCA, goes with the community solar program, then there, as you showed before, it would all be on one bill, as opposed to some of the community solar companies provide a separate bill? Or do folks get one bill other than a community solar program through CCA?
Whether the community goes forward with an opt-out community solar under CCA, or if we're just talking private market arrangements that people might pursue for community solar, there is a change coming. That's really good news. Currently, what Mary's talking about is, as a subscriber to community solar, because Central Hudson and the other utility companies in New York State resisted serving as a pass-through for payment to the community solar companies through their utility bills to date, there's been the situation where, including for me right now, I get the credit for being a community solar subscriber on my Central Hudson bill, but I have a separate payment arrangement. Everyone would need a separate payment arrangement to make that separate payment to this utility company, to the community solar company. It's a hurdle, and it's a reason that prevented CCAs from doing opt-out for community solar, as well as for electricity supply. The good news is, the state told the utility companies back in 2019 that they had to stop doing that. They had to consolidate the billing, and they had to serve as a pass-through for community solar, as well as for supply, which they're already doing. Which means that it's the reason that we're talking about potentially doing an opt-out community solar program under the CCA umbrella, at which point, yes, Mary, there would only be one bill. Everything would be done on the Central Hudson bill. It's the only way that we would promote community solar if Saugerties decides to pursue that route. But it's also true, I believe, for individuals who are in current contracts or who sign up to new contracts independently, that consolidated billing will be the same arrangement, where they won't have a two-bill situation anymore either. So it's a really good change that I'm so glad the state has mandated for the utilities. So it's just simplifying things for people and avoiding any kinds of confusion that could cause problems.
Jeff,
Yep.
Jeff, I have a question.
Sure.
When the letters go out to the people in Saugerties that this is launching, it's only the people who want to opt out who have to take action. The rest of the people who don't opt out will seamlessly be part of the program, and they don't have to do anything. They don't have to fill out a form. They don't have to do a thing. They just have to not opt out, and they're in the program.
Thank you so much for making that. Yes, that is exactly right. And thank you for emphasizing that. I feel like I should have emphasized that even more. That is the power of the default. That is the power of the opt-out program, To be in the program, I really should have. Thank you so much, Patty. To be
You're
in the
welcome.
program, you need do nothing. That's the power of this. So that's how it works so well, and that's how we get the competitiveness in the marketplace. Yeah, to be in the program, you need to take no action.
But
Which, it's a statement. It's something. It's a topic we have to cover in our working group meetings. But I had it on the list for last time. But it bears saying right now that that's a really important point. To be in the CCA program, the supply portion and possibly the community solar one, you need to take no action. I have enough experience with these other communities, now working with 16 communities in the Hudson Valley, where there is one particular company that has been doing some very deceptive marketing to fool people to thinking that they're part of the CCA program and causing them to take action. They're just an ESCO. And they are fooling people to take action. So people are getting these mailings that look like official state mailings saying, oh, you need to do this. They definitely do it intentionally to be confusing. They get you by getting you to sign something and send it back in. Our program, if you want to be part of it, you need to do nothing. So a warning to everybody, and we will strategize about how to do good messaging to prevent that confusion in the future. Should it be appropriate? Do not be fooled by deceptive marketing and actions that you don't need to take.
Right. Good point.
Elizabeth? Oops, Elizabeth, I think you're still muted. There you go.
if one is in an ESCO, you have to get out of an ESCO in order to be in the program. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. If you want to be part of the CCA program, you would have to, after making sure, because there's some of them that charge terrible penalties for early exits. We always encourage people to make sure there's no prohibitive fees or penalties. And tell them you're ending and give us your information and we'll put you in the program.
Great. Green Mountain Energy is our ESCO at the moment, but we would just tell them and tell you that we want to leave ESCO.
That's right. And it's funny, I've learned through this process too, that don't know if you guys do this, but maybe I shouldn't do this because Optimum might be listening, but every so often I call up Optimum. I'm like, hey, can you give me a better deal for my Wi-Fi and phone service? And they often do. And I've heard numerous stories from people who contacted Green Mountain Energy in particular and said, hey, we have a CCA. Can you do better with your rate? And some people have gotten great rates. So it's something to consider about with any ESCO you have. Just be a good consumer. Be an informed and challenging consumer, and it can be very beneficial.
Thank you.
I see no other questions in the chat window. Any other questions? I'm going to stay here. I'm going to go for the awkward side. I'm going to stay to 8 o'clock just in case anyone has a thought. Oh, Patty, I see you're talking, but you're muted. Wait, almost, there you go.
I'm not going to stay with you in silence, but I want to thank you. I think it was a really good presentation. I hope everybody learned a lot, and I look forward to the next ones.
Right.
Thank you so much, Patty. And I did record this, double check.
Excellent.
Yep, it's recording. So yeah, we will share this out in multiple ways. And
Okay.
Also, Jeff, we had talked about this recording will be posted on our cable TV 23, so that
yes.
may not have had a chance to be in on this. They can watch it streaming on our cable 23 channel.
Yes, that's wonderful. Yeah, no, definitely. As soon as we download and make it available, I'll coordinate to get that over to them. And that'll be wonderful.
And for everybody else who's on the call, just spread the word too. If you're members of organizations, spread the word. And as Jeff said, they'll come and speak to your group once we're able to be in person with one another again. And the more people who know about it, the better. The more questions get asked and answered. And if any of the village officials are on the call, we hope that this was helpful.
Thank you so much, Patty. That's right. Yes, please do share your ideas for helping us be more effective in spreading the word. and invite us to come speak to you, or yeah, we're open to all suggestions, and we're going to be quite present, quite active in the coming weeks.
Look forward to it.
Okay,
Very much.
yeah,
you all.
thank you also, Jeff. I'm going to check out now, and it was a very interesting presentation. I think a lot of things got cleared up in terms of the questions that were asked and answered, so thank you.
My pleasure, and thank you for everything, Mary. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Good night. Thanks, Jeff.
Good night, Skip. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Have a good night. Thank you. Leanne, do you have a question? Do you have unmute, Leanne?
All right, I did let Terry know that Glenn will be coming virtually next Wednesday, okay, for
Wonderful.
town board meeting. So we're almost set there. And I spoke to Anastasia this morning, so she's anticipating, you know, getting the video and putting it up on TV 23. So you're all set.
Thank you so much. Leanne. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Great presentation tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.